Okay, so I am really behind with the Blue Review episodes. I have an item that was provided to me by channel patron Drew Dahmer, and I've watched it a bunch of times, and kind of hitting a mental block here on how to talk about it, but I will be talking about it. Uh, I will say, ere this month doth wane. Hopefully this week. And then that's it. I'm expecting two more items that were pre-ordered for me. Have no idea when they're coming. Okay, and then I covered the arrival of the Funky Forest and Warp Forest box set that I got from error underscore 444. I've been enjoying it. It's pretty dense. I mean, the movies are weird as fuck. I had seen Funky Forest twice. Okay, so now I've seen it 4 times. I've watched Warp Forest twice, but both times I fell asleep before the end. Not reflection on the film or anything. And then I've only looked at some of the extras. So that package is formidable. So I am that was gifted to me by an anonymous patron, so I don't feel quite as much pressure to review it on camera, like super fast. I feel bad about the other one that I got from Drew, but the Funky Forest Collection box set, Blu-ray box set, that I devoted an unboxing video to not long ago. It's probably not going to be reviewed in full for. It depends. It depends on how life treats me. Life's been rough on me lately, and right now my allergies are killing me, among other maladies. So I barely got through the last video I did. Welcome back to my eBay, and I hope you will come into my eBay store, and the link's down below, and purchase whatever you like, man. I'll make you a deal. Make me an offer. Um, but yeah, hopefully my energy and everything will pick up. I'm just under a lot of weird stress and transitions last week, this week, shaping up to be exactly the same. And based on what I'm being told, next week will be even more of the same. So if I get a spurt of energy and the time/focus to delve a little deeper into the Funky Forest box set, I can film a review by the end of the month. Let's put that. Let's give me till June 1st. But if I do it earlier, great. I really want to do it earlier. So what I'm going to do instead is just kind of freestyle this. I do have several episodes of the Extreme/Forgotten series. A bunch of them sketched out and almost ready to go. Sometimes it's hard to select which one to go with. But I've decided that this is what I'm going to be talking about tonight on this video. So let me pause this and I'll be right back. Okay, so this evening's Extreme/Forgotten film is one that I first saw in 1993. I rented it at Cockbuster Video near my house. I used to live at a different area, and there was a Cockbuster down the street, across the street from me, and I was always fascinated by the foreign films. But I spent a lot of my time making my way through the horror and bad cinema sections. But I was always intrigued by the foreign. That's the first place I rented a foreign film. I rented The Seventh Seal. It was the first film with subtitles that I ever saw on home video. First film I ever saw with subtitles was Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down in the movie theater in 1990. I'm very dehydrated trying to treat this allergy issue. So anyway, there were a few that caught my eye a lot. Carell was one. I didn't get around to renting it until I moved the following year. Same with The Idiot. I would kind of gaze at it, and I had read the novel by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I think it's 1869, a novel, and I read it in high school, and I don't know, I really identified with like the deep, heavy stuff. Excuse me, back then, and um, the angst-ridden characters, philosophical, existentialist stuff. I could always home into that stuff in a book. If it was a classic that was being taught in my English class, a lot of times they would concentrate on a lot of formal details, and I was more into the characterization. Moby Dick, I thought was a brilliantly written book, but I really ignored the scores of pages about the whaling, game, and um, same kind of with The Great Gatsby. I gravitated toward his kind of angst and existentialism, and especially Nick Carraway's personality. Tobey Maguire was great casting for Nick Carraway, by the way, but I haven't seen that version of The Great Gatsby. They showed us the Robert Redford version, I think was very good, um, but the book had a philosophical strand to it uh, that I homed in on, and so same thing happened kind of with Dostoevsky. There was a lot of detail, a lot of characters and character names that I couldn't get my head around really fluently, Russian character names, and I still occasionally have that problem. Um, and so I kind of hacked my way through this jungle of names and topical details, and found that essentially the story is Prince Mishkin. He's an epileptic. He comes into some money, and um, his he's friends with a young girl who's kind of an innocent, kind of a kind, caring woman, albeit moody at times. Um, and he hopes she'll accept him because he feels like a misfit, a weirdo. He was unjustly condemned to be executed, and he almost was executed, and then he was freed, but it permanently left him in permanent shock. Like, they didn't label it this way back then, but he had basically had PTSD. Now, this was based on something that really happened to Fyodor Dostoevsky. He was before a firing squad. I think something he'd written had been considered going against, the government or whatever, and then he got a reprieve, but he had this terrible attack, and from then on he was epileptic. He would have seizures, so that kind of began his grappling with epilepsy. So Prince Mishkin in the novel has the same issue, and but he falls in love with two women. Two women want him and are attracted to him for sort of the same reasons and sort of different reasons. There's layers. The other is kind of a more well-off and very hard, kind of worldly woman, maybe a little promiscuous, a bit wild and untamed, a bit harsh, and not this kind feminine avatar or the other woman is. But Mishkin is one of those guys. He loves everyone. He's kind of a Christian. I mean, he's not overtly a Christian, but he's kind of a Christian the way I used to imagine how a Christian would or should be when I was one many years ago. He forgives everyone. He believes in kindness for everyone, no matter how awful they are. And so he, like a lot of women in real life and in fiction, fall for the bad boy. The sweet Prince Mishkin falls for the bad girl. And he wants to help her, save her, tame her, maybe show her love. It's also misguided, but it's also romantic too. I mean, in real life, I know from experience that path offers nothing but sorrow. Don't immediately branch off to a different path if you find yourself a sensitive male trying to save the bad girl. Just don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, so he teeters between the two, and then she also has another suitor who's a bit more brusque, and then there's another family who wants her to marry into it. A family who's close to Michigan's relatives, who he comes to stay with. Um, and it's complicated. It's a long book. I'm going to read you a little bit of the Wikipedia entry just to get some facts. I know Wikipedia can be it can have an agenda, but this isn't a political, post. So, I mean, the Wikipedia one, not mine. Mine's not either, really. So it could be. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what this says, because this kind of will sort us out from the novel to the film. What Kurosawa had in mind, and what actually manifested on celluloid, and then I'll talk about my reactions to it, etc. So, The Idiot, Japanese name Hakuchi, is a 1951 Japanese film directed by Akira Kurosawa. It is based on the 1869 novel The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. The original 265-minute version of the film, faithful to the novel, has been lost for many years. Okay, so 265 minutes. So, 120 minutes is 2 hours. 240 minutes is 4 hours. This 4 hours and 25-minute film that Kurosawa shot, and that book is very long and dense. So you may like this, you may hate this, but one of the things that contributes to the length is Kurosawa's pacing is it's leisurely, it's languid. He really wants to engross you in the atmosphere. He has long takes. He has lots of outdoor scenes. Most of it's snowbound. It's very melodramatic. Very. It might be too arch for some people, but I dig it. So anyway, a nearly 3-hour release reflecting a 100-minute studio-imposed cut survives as the most complete version of the film available for contemporary audiences. So that is 166 minutes. So that's 2 hours and 46 minutes. That's the version I'm reviewing. That's the one I've always seen. It seems longer in some ways, but it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, 46 minutes. Okay. The film stars. It's interesting they focus on this character, an actress, but she is the most famous actress at that time. This came out, was the most famous performer in the film. The film stars Setsuko Hara, who plays the part of Taiko Nasu, the beautiful mistress of Tahata. The characters are involved in a convoluted Russian web-like plot of intersecting relationships, which I was kind of hinting at earlier. However, to me, and maybe this is because it's a shorter version than Kurosawa shot, to me there's a few through lines that you follow that get you through this really long and convoluted movie jammed with characters pretty quickly, pretty easily. There are really only a handful of characters that truly matter, that are continuously engines that drive the story and the emotional underpinnings, I guess you could say. We'll get more to that in a minute. Okay, so it's split into two parts. There's like a short intermission. I can't remember how many minutes that is. Part one is called Love and Agony. The action, this is all from Wikipedia still. The action starts on a ship traveling from Okinawa. Hamida, who suffers from quote-unquote epileptic dementia, which he refers to as idiocy, is headed to Hokkaido. The movie explains that, this is a caption here on the movie, Dostoevsky wanted to portray a genuinely good man. It may seem ironic choosing a young idiot as his hero, but in this world, goodness and idiocy are often equated. How true. The story tells of the destruction of a pure soul by a faithless world. So that's the theme to hold on to through the movie, really. Kamita is the main character. I mean, most of the movie is from his viewpoint. Even in scenes he's not in, they contribute to forming the worldview that he's forming upon coming to Hokkaido to be with these distant relatives. Kamita has been confined to a mental asylum since he suffered a mental breakdown after he was mistaken for a war criminal and almost executed by a firing squad following World War II. So it's updated. During his journey, he meets and becomes friends with Dinkichi Akama, who, quote unquote, hadn't laughed for years. He was the son of an old Sapporo family, and his father's harsh discipline had made him feel like a caged animal. Oddly, he came to like Kamita, who made him laugh heartily. Akama told Kamita about Taiko Nasu, whom he'd met 6 months earlier. One look at her had been enough to release his pent-up passions. So, yeah, Kurosawa does a lot of this narration. So you see a lot of the kanji characters and the English subtitles giving you this kind of narration, talking to you, kind of talking you through it, like he's saying, I'm presenting you this movie, I'm transposing it about 80 years into a different country, and after a more major world, right after a more major world event that happened, at the time that the book was written. And yet, I'm telling you about Dostoevsky. I mean, we're using my names, my Kurosawa, Queda, and whatever, but we're really talking about Dostoevsky. He's talking about his characters, what they're like. He's explaining us to them and what their personalities like. It's like notes. And, I write Flickr Street. I do the same thing when I create a new character or want to lay out a character. I'll write their full name and I'll come up with like their birth date and stuff. And I'll go write that kind of stuff, like what drives them, what motivates them, and then little details on how they interlock with other characters, and hence their stories begin. So in a way, this reminds me of Carell by Rainer Werner Fassbinder, one of my top 10 filmmakers, as is Kurosawa. I don't know what positions they're in, but they're in there together, man. And Fassbinder's credits on the final film Carell, based on the novel Querelle de Brest by Jean Genet, read a film about Jean Genet's Querelle de Brest, and and that's kind of what it is. There's a meta level in Carell. If I ever get, or they're ever released, a decent Region a good definitive Carell Blu-ray, I've thumbed through a couple and not had much luck. I will definitely review it on this channel. I no longer have the DVD, or I might do it as a forgotten whatever one like this. But it is one of my very favorite movies. So anyway, this kind of reminds me of that meta level where the filmmaker's telling you about the characters and about the original author's intent. So this character, by the way, Kamita, is played by Masayuki Mori. He's not billed really that high. He wasn't very well known then. Takashi Shimura, who's like on almost every Kurosawa movie ever, is in it. And like I said, Sugahara, who was a huge star and heroine of Ozu's films. She plays Taiko, who they're talking about just now. Now, this Dinkichi Akama, who is lusting after her, he is played by Toshiro Mifune, and this is one of Mifune's early works. He'd already done a few with Kurosawa. I think the earliest ones that I've seen of him predate this one. Well, Rashomon immediately predates this one. That was kind of the big breakthrough for both of them internationally. Prior to that, Stray Dog was a superb film. And also Drunken Angel, which I don't think is quite as good, but is very good. It features a young, kind of handsome, cynical Mifune playing off of Takashi Shimura, who's like a kind of like a free clinic kind of doctor who's helping people in this kind of gross kind of sump in the middle of this ghetto after it's been war torn by World War II. Drunken Angel, so I recommend that one too. I've also seen one called Scandal. Pretty sure that had Mifune, probably had Shimura too. I don't remember much about it though. I apologize. So there's like four before this one with these guys that I've seen, but um, so Mifune was breaking big. Just not quite as big as we know him, and of course he eclipsed Sugahara on the international forever stardom level. He's kind of an iconic uh, actor of Japanese cinema, and he's kind of the alter ego kind of actor, like Scorsese, used to go for Robert De Niro. He's always got Robert De Niro as his alter ego. Um, so Mifune was with Kurosawa. So unbeatable director actor combination. And to be honest, the films that Kurosawa made after um, Mifune and he parted company, they're not many. I've seen half of them, and they're good. But there's something missing. I have to see the other half of the later ones. I've seen I can't remember. Dotska Din, pretty good. I've seen not many to be honest. Maybe three after him. Well, Ron was my favorite by far. So he gets kind of Tatsuya Nakadai to replace Mifune as the iconic aging daimyo samurai, and of course Nakadai was in quite a bit of Kurosawa's early films as well. And Nakadai is still living, still performing. He's 80, 82. My personal belief is that Tatsuya Nakadai is the single greatest living actor on Earth right now. I'd be glad to have someone challenge me on that, but I don't know. He's not my favorite living actor, but he's probably in the top five. So anyway, let's get back to this movie. No Nakadai in this film that I can tell. So Shochiku Studio distributed this, and it was released on May 23rd, 1951. So we get back to the meeting between Akama and the very kind of innocent Kamita, who is the stand-in for the Mishkin character from the novel. So Akama is returning home to Hokkaido for the first time since he stole money from his father to buy a diamond ring for Taiko. Taiko was the beautiful mistress of a rich man named Tohata since she was a child, but she ran away 6 months earlier. I don't blame her. At the same time as when Akama had bought her the ring. Akama's father has since died, and he, I guess, he is on his way to claim a large inheritance. That means Kamita. Akama and Kamita are both in the same train to Sapporo. Sometimes you really have to help, fill in the blank gaps with Wikipedia. Sometimes their facts are good, but their syntax and grasp of English composition is extremely whacked, to be honest. Sometimes there's some insane things that they let stand for years on post. But anyway, Kamita is on his way to see Mr. Ono, his only relative in the world, quote unquote. Mr. Ono's wife asks her husband what is he going to do about Kamita. He tells her that he'll try to find Kamita work and that Kamita can rent a room from Kayama, a man who is to marry Taiko in exchange for 600,000 yen. I guess I'm getting that right. Kamita's father had left Kamita a large ranch, which Ono had sold through Kayama. So this is the thing, he's innocent and all, and he's an heir. He's not a prince in this, but he is an heir to a great deal of fortune and property, and these people took advantage of him while he was away, and they're kind of sorting through in a patronizing way, like, what do we do with Kameda? And they've already done enough. They've already taken advantage of the dude. Kameda is unaware of his inheritance, which Ono's daughter Ayako later teases him about. So Ono is played by Takashi Shimura. Ayako, the daughter, is the more kind, innocent, caring female character in the story that he has a bond with. Let's see. Tohata, in an attempt to sever his ties with Taiko and avoid public disgrace for his long-term abusive treatment of her, which has twisted her psyche and made her a social pariah, offers a dowry of 600,000 yen to Koyama if he will marry Taiko, a deal which was brokered by Mr. Ono. Koyama secretly loves Ono's daughter, Ayaka. So this Koyama guy, he's a weakling and he's a pussy, man. I don't remember the actor's name on the top of my head. He's trying to play all ends to the middle, and he's coming up with nothing. He wants to marry Taiko to get the money, but he also wants Ayako, and he's using Mr. Ono, who's also being used by this older guy, Tohata, who really doesn't appear very much in the movie, though he is the prime mover behind what fucks up Taiko psychologically. Mr. Ono, played by Takashi Shimura, he seems like, he's this sweet middle-aged Japanese man, and he's going to help this poor, retarded Kameda, and that's what they would have said back then. And really, he's kind of manipulating people for money himself, and using like his daughter as bait. It's like, he's really he never seems unlikable, but he's pretty reprehensible, actually. But Kayama's even worse. The guy who wants to marry the rich woman and still have Ono's daughter. So, these two women are being manipulated by these three men. And so you bring poor Kameda into this, and then a wild card, Akama, and it's like, they're going to just fucking spoil this dynasty-like soap opera drama. And it's fun to watch it all unravel. It really is. Kameda tells Akama he should not marry Taiko, as it would mean the ruin for both Taiko and Akama. Akama tells Kameda she really loves Kameda. And Akama tells Kameda she really loves Kameda, and Akama gives her to him. So that's kind of like they've met in this kind of drawing room scene, this long, involved, very much like a soap opera. There's like the family all around, and this rich table set out. And Setsugahara as Taiko, she's wearing this long black cloak and this hood, hair jet black, of course. She's Japanese. And some critics have compared her striking visual, the iconic appearance to that of the character Death, played by Maria Casares in two Jean Cocteau films, Orpheus, or Orphe, and The Testament of Orpheus. Testament of Orpheus came well after this. Orpheus came out, I think, 2 years before this film, 1 or 2 at most, 1949 or 1950. So that's very possible that Kurosawa could have been like, hey, I want this goth chick look. Of course, no one used that term back in 1949, but that's what it is. That's what that's what it's become. That's the term for the overall look of persona of both of those female characters. Both are very strong female characters, and it's interesting that they're two of the first female characters in foreign movies that I fell in love with. I rented The Idiot and Orpheus, I think, the same month in early 1993, late 92 or early 1993, and I'm still obsessed with them, and I'm obsessed with those two characters and actresses. So we get to part 2, Love and Loathing. Taiko seems to love Kamita, but she thinks it would ruin his life to marry someone with her reputation. So she considers marrying Akama and writes to Ayako encouraging her to marry Kamita, since he is known to have written her a complimentary letter. So, in the scene I was referring to, basically, Masayuki Mori as Kamita slash Prince Michigan, he really bears his soul to this woman, this pariah, in front of everyone. And he defends her in front of everyone. It's a 1951 Japanese movie, but it really reminds me of some of the more intense and amazing scenes of seemingly incongruous people falling in love, and one of them putting the town at bay to seek redemption for this person. One Life to Live used this constantly in the 1990s. I mean, maybe Michael Malone and company were were Dostoevsky and Kurosawa fans. I don't know. I mean, if you look at characters like Todd Manning and Marty Saybrook and the arc of each of their things, it's some heavy existential soap opera like this kind of stuff. Yes, I just plugged 1990s One Life to Live. It's YouTube. Search it out. One Life to Live. OLTL. And you can put Todd Manning or Marty Saybrook or a year, say 93, 94, 95. And you will find this kind of drama that mixes this kind of ambiguous, doomed kind of love vibe and this like yearning for redemption. But something always goes wrong, but you're treated to these soul-bearing soliloquies. And that's what really happens here is that, Kamina's like, leave her alone. I believe in her. I see good in her. A cynical person might feel that it's a shallow declaration, that he just thinks she's beautiful. She's like a sexy goth queen, the bad girl. And maybe there's truth to that, but he doesn't seem to register that on a conscious level. I do think it's probably in there, in that character, and Dostoevsky kind of touches on that a little bit. Kurosawa doesn't really go there, so to speak. It's up to you to kind of decide for yourself how you feel about why Kamita does what he does with these two women. He's being manipulated by all these older men. His fate, as well as the fate of these two women, are being manipulated by these indifferent kind of people who are trying to keep the status quo, the social, appearances up. I mean, they're like, in the minority, I guess, of well-off post-war Japanese families. So, again, put it in the context of when it came out and how Kurosawa, has recontextualized this story from Russia and what was going on then perfectly to this setting and to this milieu. It's really one of the greatest remakes or adaptations ever, as far as transposing something across time and space. Yeah, and yet the essence is preserved. There's another video I'm going to work on soon with the exact same theme. It's going to be a movie and a remake of the movie, and how the remake does the same thing for the original film as this film does for Dostoevsky's novel, The Idiot. So let's get back to this exciting plot. Yeah, lots of drama and hand-wringing. Kamita proposes to Ayako. Ayako vacillates violently between expressing love and hate for Kamita and cannot understand what Taiko's true motives are since they have never met. Meaning Ayako and Taiko have never properly been married. Ayako arranges for them to talk at Akama's house, and Taiko realizes that she has been putting Ayako on a pedestal and is no less worthy of Kamita's love than Ayako is. It's like, hey, I'm pushing him off on the good girl. I'm the bad girl. And it's like, hey, but the bad girl, she's got kind of a temper too. She can be abusive to, verbally abusive, kind of bullying to Kamita because he's sensitive. She laughs at him and pokes fun at him. She doesn't mean any harm. But Taiko's like, why am I taking this moral high road? So Ayako leaves. Kamita follows her to make sure she gets home safely, and Taiko faints. That's pretty dramatic. Thinking Kamita has chosen Ayako over. At this point in the movie, I'm like, I'm all Team Taiko Kamita all the way. But we have to remember there's still Akama lurking around. Akama is a brusque, brutish guy. They imply he's involved in some kind of crime scene. But he does desperately want Taiko. And he does really kind of love Kamita. He really admires his goodness. It's a redemption that he'll never have, that he's watching Taiko kind of start to undergo just through knowing and being cared for by Kamita. So it puts Akama in a fucked up situation. Does he evolve and embrace these kind of new feelings that Kamita is showing him about how to be as a man, a sensitive man, a loving man, or is he going to revert to type and get even worse and try to bullishly take what he thinks is his and just destroy everybody in his way? So, when Kamita returns to Akama's house, he discovers that Akama, who is insanely jealous of the feelings he knows Taiko has for Kamita and not for him, but has been unable to make himself dislike Kamita when they see each other in person, has killed Taiko. Yeah, this is the heavy last act. It's a strong departure from the rest of the movie. It hurls things into a really dark place. Even the lighting's dark. They're kind of in this darkened hovel where Akama's hanging out. And of course, there's still snow and ice outside. Everything I just summed up about their interaction, is reiterated here. And yes, like I said, it ends in ruin. He kills Taiko. Akama does not want her corpse to start to smell, so the two men do not light a fire, and spend the night huddled around candles and bundled under blankets before they both seemingly die the next morning. Upon hearing this news, Ayako remarks that she is the real idiot for not having been able to love without hatred like Kamita did. So, Kamita dies on that pedestal, but he's earned it. He's genuine. He's real. He's not the idiot. He's not the person that these older, rich Japanese dudes are dismissing and mocking. He's not the, kind of funny guy that even his friends, Akama and Ayako, kind of rib a bit. But he is the man that Taiko sees. That's what's amazing. The person who's got the most tainted and cynical worldview sees him clearly for being a genuinely good person, and it inspires her to try to gain redemption as well. Unfortunately, she dies because the crazy Akama's killed her. First time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? What did this come from? I thought they were going to have like a three-way confrontation, or maybe even four-way with Ayako. I don't mean sexual, but perverts. But instead that happens, and they huddle together, and Kamita, despite his benevolence, must be angry and upset that Akama killed Taiko right before it looked like they were going to hook up. But he stays with him. He sees his friends going completely insane. And he has. Akama's he's lost his marbles. They're scattered all over fucking Asia. And why do they die? That's the thing. Did they freeze to death? Maybe. I mean, it is dramatic. All three of them are dead there in that kind of like cave or whatever. But Ayako's remark is it's pungent. It's like, yes, okay, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to the final development of Ayako's character as being self-aware and more sensitive, and having learned from these horrible experiences. But in the overall story doesn't hinge on Ayako. To me, some people may be like, Ayako's my favorite character, man. Fuck you. But I'm just saying. So, who plays these cats? Masayuki Mori, I mentioned, as Kenji Kamita, based on Prince Michigan. Toshiro Mifune as Denkichi Akama, based on Rogozin. Setsuko Hara as Taiko Natsu, based on Nastasia Filipovna. Yoshiko Kuga as Ayako, based on Aglaya Ivanovna. I still kind of remember these Russian names, Mishkin and Rogozin, especially, and Nastasia. Takashi Shimura as Ono, Ayako's father, based on General Panchin. Cheiko Higashiyama as Satoko, Ayako's mother, based on Lizaveta Prokofievna. Hijiro Yanagi as Tohara, based on Totsuki. Minoru Chiaku as Matsuo Kayama, the secretary, based on Gavril Ardilanovich. Now he's the guy who basically Ono and Tohara broker Taiko to be his bride. But he really likes the innocent girl. But he makes a fucking fool of himself in front of everybody. And he's really a dick to Kamina, because again he's intimidated. I think he's incensed that this innocent idiot is upstaging him with the ladies and showing himself to be a real man in front of all these snobs. Finally, Noriko Sanguko as Takako. I'm not sure who character that is, based on Varvara. Okay, so this gives me a little background. I just want to finish this up because of the fact the details are interesting to me. The film is in black and white at an aspect ratio of 137:1, so it's just about the Square Academy TV ratio, which is 133:1. This was Kurosawa's second film for the Shochiku Studio after Scandal, 1950. It was originally intended to be a two-part film with a running time of 265 minutes. That was 4 hours and 25 minutes. After a single poorly received screening of the full-length version, the film was severely cut at the request of the studio against Kurosawa's wishes. When the re-edited version was also deemed too long by the studio, Kurosawa sardonically suggested the film be cut lengthwise instead. So, here's the frame, here's how they cut it, and you should just cut it vertically. Fuck it. According to Japanese film scholar Donald Ritchie, there are no existing prints of the original 265-minute version. Kurosawa would return to Shochiku later to make Rhapsody in August 1991, which was his last or next to last film. And according to director Alex Cox, it's said to have searched the Shochiku archives for the original cut of the film to no avail. So, first of all, Donald Ritchie pisses me off. He's really one of the foremost experts on Japanese cinema, especially Kurosawa. But out of the several books he's written on Japanese cinema and a couple on Kurosawa, whenever we get to the idiot, it's like a hate fest. It's like, he doesn't say this, but it comes through. It's like, fuck the idiot, fuck that shit. It's like Rashomon, the height, apex of cinematic achievement. And then he does this excrement. We're just going to forget this. We're going to strike it out of his filmography. And he really, maybe he's not, but he comes across that vehemently in print. I've seen some interviews with him on camera, not about the idiot, thank God. But he is a bit of a drama queen. So, surprised he doesn't like the idiot. So yeah, no 265-minute cut. That's something someone needs to find. Here's a quote by Akira Kurosawa. Of all my films, people wrote to me most about this one. I had wanted to make The Idiot long before Rashomon. Since I was little, I have liked Russian literature, but I find that I like Dostoevsky the best, and have long thought that this book would make a wonderful film. He is still my favorite author, and he is the one I still think who writes most honestly about human existence. Of course, Dostoevsky's been called an existentialist many times. The writer Colin Wilson, who kind of formulated this kind of new existentialist movement in the 50s and 60s, starting with his book, I believe, The Outsider, I think was the first one. Dostoevsky runs through those books as an example of what he's talking about. So I think in reading all this stuff, I've interjected all my own views and opinions, so I needn't go on too much longer. What I am reviewing is a Korean Region 3, but could be played on any DVD, even not. It played on my regular DVDs that weren't region free. I've never had a region free DVD player. I've had region free Blu-rays, which easily play all region DVDs. But I had this before that. I ordered this from Amazon around 2009, maybe 2008, maybe earlier. I've had a long fucking time, and almost all the language is in Japanese. A tiny bit over here is in Korea, and there's one little sum up in English. It has English subtitles. It's Korean subtitles. This was released by Criterion in like a box set when they were doing the Eclipse series, which were like little box sets that had multiple films, like that were kind of forgotten or under the radar of like a certain genre, like early Seijo Suzuki films or the early films of Dusan Makaveyev. Those were some Eclipse packs and DVD. Now, none of the Eclipse stuff, to my knowledge, has been on Blu-ray yet. So that's why I'm talking about this. So you can still find that. I don't know. I don't think it was. I don't know if it was early Kurosawa and it was like this and Scandal. I forgot the name of the other one. It might have been that, or it might have been early Japanese, but I think it was like minor early Kurosawa. This movie is very hated by a lot of people. A lot of the artsy-fartsy, highfalutin foreign film crowd just thinks this movie's just trash. Boring, long, drawn out. To me, it's an experience. You lose yourself in the experience. It's not the same experience I had reading the book when I was in high school, but in a way it was. It was just, instead, it was, I wasn't 15. I was, when did I first rent it? 25. So 10 years later, I'm seeing this movie, and I'm not really into reading a lot of super in-depth, like metaphysical and existentialist fiction like I was as a teenager. And I've still mostly moved away from that. Though I think I have some Dusty. Might have lost it. I had The Idiot and I had Notes from Underground, which is really a brilliant way to start with Dostoevsky. It's a short and very existentialist and soul-racking novel, very classic. But my point is the emotions drew me into this. And instead of through the words and my imagining all these people with these long, crazy Russian names in Russia in the snow, instead the visual component, there's the snow and there's the ice and there's like the wipes, like where they cut to the next scene left to right. That's a Kurosawa trademark, and it's one that George Lucas famously and self-admittedly stole. And I noticed it's being used in The Mandalorian. It's been resurrected. And that's okay, because The Mandalorian is like paying homage to all kinds of genres that Lucas liked, which were cool genres, but Lucas himself, in my opinion, did not have the talent to do competent homages cinematically to those genres. So now he's got Jon Favreau to do it for him. So, yeah, it's a beautiful movie. I highly, highly recommend it. You love it, you'll hate it. I don't know. But anyway, I've seen it once on TCM late at night, 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, oh, I've got it. I'm going to go and watch it. I have probably seen this movie, oh my God, I don't know, man, 50 times. I would say 40 to 50 times easily, at least. So compare that to the movie I've probably seen the most of any movie. I would say probably Night of the Living Dead. I've probably seen a little over 100 times. I'm not one of these people who've seen like Star Wars 465 times. I knew this girl Brenda when I worked at Barnes and Noble, and she was like, and I was like, yeah, I've seen this and this like 20 times, and she's like, damn, you're really not serious about this movie watching. My favorite movie is Braveheart. I have watched that movie 465 times. I'm like, you counted? And yeah, every day. I would put it on when I got home. I would keep it going, then I rewind it, watch it again and again. From the periphery, I'm cooking, I'm taking care of my son, and I'm like, I mean, I count those as views too, but geez, the only people that come close I know are Rocky Horror Picture Show aficionados. I mean, I do personally know people who, from going to the midnight movies and watching them at home, I would say I've probably seen Rocky Horror Picture Show at least 500 times. At least. I mean, I may know some people have seen it 1,000 times. And most of these people are my age or older, so we're not talking like really young people that have that time to watch this stuff constantly. Um, my advice to as an appendum to my layman's thing, what was it called? The imaginary film class, film school. My layman's thing is I think you should concentrate on watching as many different movies as you can over watching single movies a ton of times. Uh, I would rather do the former than the latter any day. I've really only started rewatching a lot of movies that I've seen before just in the last few months, and a lot of it's because of this channel, and research and stuff. So, but anyway, that's it for me. I think this is episode something or other, a blue review, and I'm pretty sure it's Extreme / Forgotten uh, Part 12. We need to get this on Blu-ray. Don't let it be forgotten. And it is extreme in the sense that it is just, it's like existentialism 101. I mean, it is. The emotions are extreme. It's not graphic visually. And damn, Satsuko Hara is the goth queen. All right. I have spoken. Take care.